If you enjoy vintage audio equipment, you've come to the right spot. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell, as well as giving me a big thumbs up if you like this video, and share it with others. There is a risk of serious injury or death from electrical shock working on this equipment. If you're not comfortable with working on the equipment, please do not take the cover off and consult a professional. This Marantz 2385 needs some repairs along with restoration, both cosmetically and electrically. There were several different issues that made this unit a challenge. This 2385 is pretty dirty inside, like so many pieces of vintage equipment that I see, and I'll dust that out outdoors and get most of that stuff out before I start troubleshooting. I brought it back in, I removed the faceplate for cleaning, I used some warm water and dish soap on it, followed by some Mother's aluminum polish, which I've used successfully for a long time. But if you use that aluminum polish, try a small spot, make sure you don't take your stenciling off. I've never had an issue, but that doesn't mean you're not going to. Any repair or restoration is usually going to involve changing out some old fuse lamps. With the faceplate off, those can be changed out quite easily in the 2385. You get one more layer in, and of course you run into more dirt and dust, and it just collects everywhere, and now's the time to clean it while you've got it all apart. I just used some rags, some dish soap, some water, Q-tips, whatever works, and got it cleaned up a little bit. Just a little tip, a small clip-on LED light, that can help you out in dark areas when you're trying to look at one little point and you can't see it very well. So that's a good tip. Just have one of those little lights around just to supplement your other lighting. Did you ever, and I'm sure you have, you've seen these Marantz's kind of glow green dial lamps in the meter assemblies. They just glow kind of a greenish instead of the original blue, and that's almost always the original white vellum paper. It's turned yellow. On the meter assemblies, there is normally a little bit of adhesive holding the meters in place, and you're going to say, why isn't this coming out of here? And that's why. So you use the point of an X-Acto knife. That seems to work good for me, and you just slowly work along between the meter and the case to loosen it. Don't force it. It's 40-plus-year-old plastic. It's pretty fragile. So when it wants to come loose, it'll come loose. Just go slow with it. And once you get the meter assembly out, you can see that yellow paper that needs to be replaced. And so here I show the original vellum paper along with a sheet of the white vellum paper like it was way back in the late 70s. So I'm going to put that new vellum paper in there, and what do you know? Boy, it looks a lot better, huh? Kind of that beautiful Marantz blue glow. That'll be good for many decades, most likely. It'll look like that. So it's well worth the time to do it. Now you may be wondering, what are you doing all this cosmetic stuff for? You said something in the beginning about this was something, you ran into something different that you haven't run into. And so why are you doing the cosmetic stuff? Well, when I purchased this unit, it was a Craigslist purchase. As I recommend in my other videos, I brought along my multimeter, my little digital multimeter, just in my hand, and I went to look at this unit, and it would power up. Saw the dial come on, the dial lights came on. I put it in FM. I could spin the tuning wheel, and sure enough, it would find stations. But one thing I noticed was, even though the speaker relay, the soft start, first of all, the soft start relay went, and then in a couple seconds after that, you should have the speaker relay go. And it did. You push the power button, you know how it is. It doesn't matter if it's a Marantz, a Pioneer, Sansui, they all work in a similar manner. In a few seconds, you hear that distinctive click, and I did. So I thought, well, this thing probably at least makes some sound. Well, the guy had a pair of speakers hooked to it, and nothing. It was dead silent. And he said, yeah, it just doesn't have any audio. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I've ever had a unit where I heard the speaker relay go, that one channel didn't at least work, or you get that staticky stuff from the pots. You get something out of it. And it was a little small set of speakers. I took them and I put them up to my ear like a shell you'd find at the beach. Nothing. It was dead silent. And so I turned it off again. I turned it on, make sure I heard what I heard, and sure enough, this thing should be putting out some audio. So I took my multimeter that I brought with me and I put it back at the speaker jacks. Dead open. I mean, I could tell, you know, your digital multimeter, when nothing's there, it just gives you random garbage, really, right? So I knew it really isn't working. And so I just sort of scratched my head, made a deal on the unit. Obviously, it had no audio. I didn't really know what the issue was, but I purchased it and brought it home. And so that's kind of how I got started on the cosmetic stuff first, because I knew it would power up. I knew the issue I had. So I thought, well, I'll just do that first. And so then I started troubleshooting the power amp issue. Well, actually, I didn't know it was the power amp, but I used a signal generator and an oscilloscope. And I just pumped a 1,000 hertz signal into the auxiliary inputs, and I took a look at the signal coming through the receiver. And to make a long story short, I could see the 1,000 hertz sine wave coming into the power amp assembly. Let me say this power amp assembly is one board for both the left and the right channels. You know, a lot of times they're separated on the sides of the unit. This one is one board, but both the left and the right channel are in this one board, the power amp section. So I took a look. I thought, well, maybe I'm missing a voltage or something down here. And I looked at the voltages. They all look good. So it wasn't a power supply issue, but there was no sine wave coming out of this board. You know, coming in it was, going out it wasn't. So I knew there's my problem. I didn't know what my problem was, but I knew it was somewhere down here on this power amp section. In this unit's case, in many of them, I figured I was going to have to troubleshoot this unit, so I removed it from the chassis. And when you remove something, mark the cables, do whatever you need to do, take plenty of pictures so you can get it back together when you need to. First thing I did, I knew I didn't have it coming out of this board. I just stepped back on the other side of a resistor, and there it was. I'm like, what is going on here? Okay, I don't have it here, you know, coming out of this assembly, but I've got it right on this resistor. That's the next step out is out of this assembly. And I'm going, well, both channels can't be like this. So I go down to the other channel. Same thing. You know, I'm looking at it like, it's almost like flying a plane, right? Trust your instruments, you know, no matter what you think. I'm thinking, what is going on here? So I shut the unit off. I just ohmed out both of those resistors. They're wide open. And I'm like, how did two separate resistors on two separate channels open up? What'd they use this for? A guitar amplifier or something? I have no idea. And I was thinking, oh man, what else is wrong? I mean, is there something else here? But there couldn't be. There couldn't be anything else wrong, you know, that I could see. So what did I do? I replaced the two resistors. I powered it up. I had the signal all the way through the unit. I want to give you, in my videos, a unique perspective of what I found in each unit, but giving you a detailed explanation of what I did, it's not going to help you fix your unit. Hopefully I give you general troubleshooting ideas, like in this case, taking a signal from a signal generator and just following it through. Because there's no way you're going to ever have this exact problem that I had. You're just not. You know, I'd never seen it before, and I'll probably never see it again, where you've got two channels with the same resistor blown open. It wasn't like it was melted or broken half. I have no idea. Something happened, though. As I said, I don't know what happened. They cranked it wide open and turned it. I have no idea. And I have no idea why those resistors went. That'd be somebody smarter than me to figure that one out. So now I've got audio. Hey, good deal, right? So on I went, and you know me and these electrolytic capacitors, I just started working my way through. The audio muting board and the soft start board all had their electrolytic capacitors replaced. Of course, probably the most important assembly in any vintage unit, the power supply. I certainly got that, got all the electrolytics changed out of that, and I also changed a number of the transistors. Do you have to do this? Maybe not, but I did it. Approaching 45 years old, and I just thought it would be a good idea. I wanted to reseat the transistors that were on heat sinks with new thermal compound, new insulator. So, geez, if you're going to do all that, why not change them out for some new ones? As I said, I was glad I took that assembly out because, you know, you have to separate it from the heat sink to get those two transistors replaced. But I want to caution you again, I bring this up again. I know we went by this, but on almost all these vintage units, you don't have to know what it is, but it's a bias transistor with two little wires on it. And one of the biggest mistakes somebody new would make is to take that apart and not realize those are still attached to the heatsink, and those wires will break. And that's one of those items that are very difficult to get. Went ahead and, you know, got the unit back together. Everything seemed good. Got sound. I was able to adjust the idle current and the DC offset. I will tell you, when you're working, take a look how tight this is. You know, I'm used to kind of being in here, but it's still very tight. And you've got your test leads in there. You short something together down here, something very, very bad's going to happen. You know, it just is. So you got to be ultra careful. And just to make a note too, you may see a bunch of soldered leads. Somebody's been in here before working on it. These things will break too. So you got to watch out when you're moving cables here and moving them around. Don't bend them too much or they will break. Well, I got that up and running. And then I thought, well, let me just try the FM. I was sure everything was working. Well, guess what? One channel in the FM was not working. You know, so I went ahead and I troubleshot that problem. And this is a problem that you'll probably never have. This wasn't one of those parts that go bad in them all. So I troubleshot that, got the left channel up and working, and it was caused by the FM buffer assembly. You know, I just replaced the small signal transistor and it started working. More electrolytic capacitors wherever I ran into them. Doesn't matter if there's only one on a board, needs to be changed out, like on the noise amp, one capacitor, but you know, you still got to do it. In this unit, what I found out too, as I was working on it, the power switch. Did you ever have a unit or see a unit, you turn it on, you get a little light flicker, you might hear a little bit of for a better term, a sizzling sound? Well, this one had it. The power switch was bad. So the original power switch, you can't call Marantz and get one. So I got one on Mauser. I had to do a little research. See, that's the thing. You can't just call, you know, Marantz and get one. Had to do a little research. Found a power switch I thought would work. Kept the original cap, Marantz cap, and put that in. And that fixed that, so that was good. So getting all those capacitors out of there is a must. And like any restoration, there's a ton of cables. Do whatever you got to do. You know, in today's world, marking them's a great thing. Taking pictures, you know, is a better thing, right? I mean, you can just take hundreds of pictures if you want to. And if you get in trouble when you put something back together, or you break a wire, you know, you're going like, where's this wire go? Holy smokes, I don't know. Well, just have some pictures and that'll really help you. In this unit and in every vintage unit, the push button switches are a big, big issue. And I know this sounds ridiculous. Get your Deoxy in there and exercise each of those switches 25 to 50 times. I know it's nuts. You think it's nuts. Well, you won't think it's nuts if you go through all this work or have it disassembled, you put it back together and you still got an intermittent problem with one of these switches and you're tearing it apart. So it's much better off to take an hour. It's going to take you that long to do this and to clean everything up as well as you can. On this unit, some of the assemblies came right on out. Plug-in assemblies, which made it so much easier, some not. Right? You can see plenty of wires hanging here because they were wire wrapped, and that was the method they used back in the 1970s in consumer and commercial equipment to put a lot of stuff together. But some of them, as I said, would come right out on the table, and how nice is that, huh? To clean the switches and clean the pots and replace components. I mean, that's very nice. You know, makes it a lot easier than working on them when they're still in the chassis. Now, I want to talk about Deoxy D100 that I've maybe mentioned but not talked that much about. Get a Q-tip. This stuff works great on those plug-in connectors, right? You don't need to spray D5 all over the place, right? Get D100, put some of that on a Q-tip, and then just rub those pins. and it'll clean them up like brand new, and you don't make a big mess either. So, and that stuff will go. It's not cheap, but it's not going to go bad, and it'll last you a real long time. It's certainly worth having if you work on this stuff, you know, often. Selector assembly came right on out. Spray all those contacts, and you can see I got the knob back on because I tried to turn that with my hand. You ever try to turn one of those without the knob on? Man, if you don't have arthritis, you will. So I got the knob back on so I can just crank that thing back and forth, you know, those 25 or 50 times that I need to do. Any of the low-level transistors that have a history of a problem, I changed them out while I was in there. Just use a good quality capacitor and a good quality transistors for your replacements, and you'll get years of trouble-free service out of it, you know. But use a name brand, use Panasonic, you know, use whatever brand. Anything's going to be better than your 40 or 50-year-old electrolytic capacitors, but just use a name brand and buy them from a reputable dealer. Some circuits require an audio grade capacitor. Everybody's got their own idea what's the best. I personally don't have a favorite. I've used almost all of them. As long as it's a name brand, it's probably going to work out great for you. And I replaced the capacitors and signal transistors in the photo amp and selector board, and it's ready to go. I moved on to the preamp boards, and getting closer to getting done here. These boards come right out on your table, and it makes it so nice to work on them. Hopefully the 2385 will be able to operate reliably for several more decades. I'm starting to get it back together, and like always, you want to check your work. You kind of go along here, make sure you don't have some kind of issue. Now I've got a lot of the assemblies back in. I don't want to put it all back together and then find out, oh Lord, I've got a problem, right? So I got it back together as far as I could without, you know, getting the case on and getting the knobs on, and give it a good check here on the bench before I move on. This guy's a little beat up, crusty here and there. He's ready to be bench tested, and we got that nice blue glow now. You know, this unit's ready to go for decades to come. And as I said, oh, one other thing too I forgot to mention. You might be able to see it here in this last picture. The balance knob is missing. It was broke off. I think you can see it. I ended up using like I didn't have another Marantz one, so what I did, I had some extra knobs, and I put a different knob on here, and when you see it in the video to come up, you'll see it. It's not the correct knob, but when I get an extra, I'm not going to pull one off one of my other units just to do that, so I had some extra knob that wasn't quite the original, but it works fine. I'm really proud of this one. It had a lot of different issues. I'm sure it was broken all the stuff didn't break at once. It kind of broke slowly, I think, over the years, and finally they couldn't get no audio out of it, so they're done with it. Probably the FM broke 10 years ago, who knows. But anyway, on we go, and now this restoration, this Marantz 2385 repair and restoration is complete. It's time for some music. With 185 watts a channel, this receiver has more power than most people will need. Quite effortless. It'll drive pretty much any speakers to ear-splitting levels, unless you just have a gigantic room or extremely inefficient speakers. It's hard to believe you'd need more than this, even if you're into you know, a little bit of that loud music like I am from time to time. It's a full-featured receiver. It has two tape monitors and a copy function. It has FM, of course, two phonos, in addition to an auxiliary. It has that mode switch that so many of them had in the 70s, you know, that is, you know, you usually leave it in stereo, you know, but it does have reverse, left and right, left by itself and the right channel by itself, but I'm not sure who uses that, you know, a whole lot. It has a lot of turnover frequencies if you're into using the tone controls for both the bass and the treble, and there is also a mid-range control. Got two speaker systems. you've got your standard loudness button and a filter button, and of course you got that Marantz wheel, and it's a nice looking unit. No complaints. I'm always happy to get it in and listen to it for a while. There's really nothing bad to say about it. It's just a tremendous unit from the 1970s. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd appreciate a big thumbs up down below. And if you're not presently a subscriber, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a thought and subscribed. So I hope you enjoyed it again, and y'all have a good day.